and welcome to today's lesson, an introduction to thinking algebraically. I'm going to talk deep for a minute because thinking algebraically, guys, is another way to think about mathematics. It's going to be the intro into algebra, which we're going to do later. But algebraic thinking is just a way to think about math. And that's kind of how I want you to see this. This is just a new way that we're thinking about math. So now let's look at some vocabulary as we go into this lesson. Well, our first vocabulary word is the word variable. And what that means is a letter or a symbol that represents a number. And so let's say, for example, one of my favorite letters is Q. And let's say that I wanted this Q to represent the number 16. And so whenever you see the letter Q in a mathematical number sentence, that's you can say, oh, well, Q is representing 16. Or another example of talking about trying to use a symbol, let's say that I put this square. And everywhere you see a mathematical number sentence that have a square, like square plus 5, and I say, well, that square is going to represent 48. So that means that square plus 5 is the same thing as saying 48 plus 5. The only thing that, like I said, the only thing that letter or symbol is doing is just standing in and just representing that number. And well, why variable? Why do we do this to ourselves mathematically? Well, the variable, the number, that the letter represents can vary. And when you see the word vary, guys, the one thing I want y'all to think about, vary means to change. And again, going back to my favorite letter of Q, that if I wanted to use Q, well, Q can represent 45, 3, 18, 79, or 44. Remember, what that letter is trying to represent can change based on mathematical needs. So I want you to think about that it can change or it can vary based on mathematical needs. So let's continue on with the rest of this vocabulary introduction. So now an expression. Again, this is just numbers, symbols, operators, and remember these are our 4 basic operators to show the value of something. And so let me show you an example of an expression. Let me change my color for this one. Like 2 times 3. This is an expression. And the one reason why we say that this is an expression, because it's missing the one thing that most mathematical number sentences that we're familiar with has, which is an equal sign. So an expression is an equation or a mathematical number sentence without the equal sign. Another expression that we can have is 4a, which means the same thing as saying 4 times a, or 6w times 4. And the one thing I want y'all to take real quick note of is I'm going to be using this dot for here on out, because when you're using algebra, sometimes we are going to use X to represent a letter, and so we have to change what we use to say multiplication. So now, well, we talked about an expression, and now let's talk about the equal sign. Well, the equal sign is to indicate equality between 2 expressions. So let me show you another example. That if we have 9 times 4 equals 35 plus 1. Well, to show that these things have some type of equality, let's go ahead and solve them out. 9 times 4 has a value of 36. 35 plus 1 also has a value of 36, which indicate that these are equal. The equal sign is showing that this side, that the left side, is also equal to the right side expression. And now, let's look at our last part, which is an equation. Now, an equation is a mathematical number sentence that shows two sides to be equal or balanced. So let me go back to my pen here, and let's say that 7 plus 2 and equals. So, well, 7 plus 2 equals 9. And 9 is the same thing as 7 plus 2. Again, an equation shows that things are equal or balanced, and they carry the same weight. Now, let's look at our last part of this video. Well, what do these symbols and expressions mean? Well, 8C, I mean. 8C is the same thing as saying 8 times C. And sometimes I will try to use an asterisk also to represent that we're trying to multiply. So you either see it this way, or you either see it this way to indicate that I'm showing you that this is another multiplication sign, okay? Now, here's another one where we have a number next to another number written in words. Well, we know that a dozen is 12. And what this is telling us is that 6 dozen is the same thing as saying 6 times 12. And that's pretty much all what that's telling you, is that 6 dozen is the same thing as 6 times 12. And we see another expression just like this one, 7W times 4. What this is really telling you, what this means is that this is 7 times a number W times 4. And lastly, what we have here is G / 6. This is saying that G divided by 6. Like I said, I know that was a long one, but that is the end of the lesson. But like I said, this was just an introduction to get y'all thinking about the things that we're going to be doing over the next few days.